we're faced with polarization, social unrest, conflict, and the narratives that just keep shifting, and they're not always positive. But we need to remember that we're Rotarians and that Rotary can be that stabilizing force by upholding our core values of respect, diversity, leadership, and of course, service above self. We need to encourage these open conversations. We need to resist the divisive rhetoric, and we need to stay grounded in our mission. And you know that we are always united rather than divided. So I think we have the opportunity to model inclusive leadership and promote healing and collaboration among communities, especially, with what we're being bombarded with on a regular basis. Now, how has Rotary kind of responded to this divisive and this, nature of conversation? And I want to read part of a message that was sent to Rotary members, and you may or may not have received it. I know it's on rotary.org, but it's a letter dated April 11th from RI President Stephanie Urchik, Trustee Chair Mark Maloney, and CEO John Hugo. And this is in their words, and they say, we want to assure you that in times of uncertainty, one thing is certain: our mission and values remain unchanged. Rotary is a force for good in the world because we are deeply embedded in communities. We will continue to provide service to others, promote integrity, and advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace. The ideals of service, fellowship, and diversity have enabled us to transcend boundaries of all kinds. We bring people of all backgrounds together, foster collaboration, and make our communities stronger. For 120 years, Rotary has thrived through 2 world wars, through Cold War, through multiple deadly pandemics, and we have endured and strengthened because we adhere to our mission and to the values. In times like these, we once again are reminded of the strength of Rotary and the importance of supporting our organization. They then went on to talk about our global polio eradication efforts and our areas of focus, and how each of those are so deeply embedded in who we are and our values. So, one of the things I like to say, and how we can move forward, and how we can maybe, there's a lot of angst around the acronym, and I'm trying very actively not to use the acronym. It is definitely being politicized. We hear statements like, there's a plane crash. Well, it must have been a DEI hire, or there's something else that happens. And so many of us, I'm beyond shaking my head. It hurts me. It hurts me. I think it hurts a lot of us to our core. But I think we can lean into our values and we can speak to our action plan. And I know we're all very familiar with our strategic priorities and our action plan. And one of the things that we can really lean into is our two priorities I like to speak about, but one is enhanced participant engagement. Under there, we look to support our clubs to engage members. You know what? After each of these kind of points, I'm going to say diversity, equity, and inclusion. So what we're talking about is exactly diversity, equity, and inclusion. And maybe we need to take a little bit of a breath and not use those terms. If those terms resonate where you are, absolutely go for it. And I'll give you a few examples of people who are really leaning into that. But getting back to participant engagement, enhancing that, develop a participant-centered approach to deliver value. That means talking to our members, finding out what they want their Rotary experience to look like. And again, it's about having those conversations. It's about allowing everybody to bring everything that they are to everything that they do. Offer new opportunities for personal and professional connection. I think we can all open up opportunities for leadership, for non-traditional, roles, or for people who don't always fit the traditional maybe view of what we think a leader should look like in Rotary, and provide those leadership development and skills also. Expand our reach, another one of our priorities, speaks directly, grow and diversify our membership and our participation, create new channels into Rotary, and increase Rotary's openness and appeal. So leaning into that global strategy and language will ensure we're all on the same page. Now, artist and I spoke, and I mentioned to her that last week I was in person at Rotary International for our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Council. We meet once a year, and you can appreciate the rich conversation that we have versus when we meet on Zoom. And everyone, really shared what's happening in their region. If you're not familiar with who's on the advisory council, just go to rotary.org and you'll see who our members are. But it was really interesting because as we're really thinking about regionalization and we're thinking about supporting our members and our DEI chairs in the district, we decided to reach out to some of our regional offices. And we reached out to Zurich and we reached out to our Brazil office. And we had our club and district support people report to us what they're hearing from their members and some of the challenges. And they're facing some of the political backlash. They're obviously hearing in the news, some of the conversation, the rhetoric is the only way to really describe it. But it was really interesting also to hear from our Zurich office who said their members are leaning into diversity, equity, inclusion. It resonates with them, and they really want to feel empowered, and they're pushing back a little bit. And it was interesting because at the advisory council, we spent some time talking about history and how at times in history, people remained silent, people didn't have a voice, and how in hindsight or looking back, we all recognize that we have a human rights responsibility, an individual responsibility. We have a voice and we need to use our voice and we need to push back. And so as we can, according to our safety or our business, we have a responsibility to be citizens of the world. And this is what we heard from the Zurich office, is that they are actually leaning into and want to strengthen the language and use diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then, of course, we know that it is banned in the United States, and we can't use these, and we will be penalized for using this language. So we have to realize that our organization right now is based in the US, and that we could be a potential target to some backlash for, hard to believe, everything that we stand for, right? Environment, peace. If you look at the banned words, it's everything that we stand for. Women, supporting health for childcare and education and literacy. And so we need to lean into everything that we have done in the past, everything that we're going to do in the future. We can't hide behind, or make up, different terminology just to hide behind what we stand for. But we also have to be smart about this, because there is a tangible threat to our organization, even as a charity, and our 501(c)(3) status in the US. And so we need to be aware that we need to be pragmatic and we need to be smart. So what I will encourage everyone to do is to use the language that resonates with your members. And perhaps that acronym has been overused, and we can start telling our stories and our personal experiences and talking about inclusion and talking about how we can make Rotary more inclusive, accessible, without using maybe some of those trigger words, and using those real life stories that nobody can take away your personal experience and your stories. And every time we hear one, we learn and we grow. So that would be kind of my, advice to anyone who feels they can't use these words or can't use this acronym. But I also want to take the opportunity to congratulate you for all that you do. And if you're leaning into that terminology, I'm applauding you. Lean into that terminology. If you can't, then find a way. Be strategic, be stealth, and still lean into everything that we stand for.